Good morning to all of you, and welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River. Thank you all for joining us today, and now, the Reverend Richard Trudeau. Thank you all for being here.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, where we think religious questions are important, but we want to work out our own answers, where we gather to share ideas and support one another. We gather this hour as people of faith, having sorrows and joys and needs and gifts. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life we share together. Can we join please in our opening hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On, an Endless Song. Praising soul and touching vow, our thoughts today will be. Please remain standing for a little and join in our affirmation. It's in the order of service. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the ends that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God. Please be seated. It happened this week in my neighborhood, and I'm going to read a little poem by Archibald MacLeish about it. Why, it was wonderful. Why, all at once there were leaves at the end of a dry stick, small, alive, leaves out of wood. It was wonderful, you can't imagine. They came by the wood path, and the earth loosened, the earth relaxed. There were flowers out of the earth. Think of it. And oak trees oozing new green at the tips of them, and flowers squeezed out of clay, soft flowers, limp stalks flowering. Well, it was like a dream. It happened so quickly. All of a sudden, it happened. Yeah, that's Archibald MacLeish. Potluck next week. Potluck next week. I don't have any other announcements. Do you? Do any of you?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I just wanted to say thank you, Richard, for leading us in worship today. And we always look forward to what you have to tell us. And I want to let people know that Paul Sprecher will be here next week. We haven't seen him in almost. There was a busy getting married and moving, and so now he's going to be able to join us. So he's come. And I also want to remind you that we're on our June 16th is our final service of the year, and we'll be taking the summer off, so especially wanted to mention that because Tara, who's a new person to us right here on right morning, Tara, we want to be sure she doesn't come to something.
Yeah, God trusts us to be out of sight for a few weeks. Yeah.
And vice versa.
I just wanted to, music today sounds kind of Chinese, it's because it is Chinese. Chinese. Okay.
Often the Chinese religion called Taoism is associated with the yin-yang symbol, but this is really more appropriate. This is on the other half of your insert. This is the Chinese symbol for water. Water. Following the Tao is often compared to following the flow of a river. Following the Tao is going with the flow. Could we read together responsively? But let me say a little something about pronunciation. There's this awkward thing going on that makes us all feel stupid sometimes. They're changing the way they translate Chinese words into English letters. Like you may remember when Peking was this big city in China, now it's Beijing, right? So this is happening, and the Tao, spelled T-A-O, they're moving toward spelling it D-A-O because that's closer to the way they say it. So it may throw you. I'm going to keep saying the Tao, but it's And Lao Tzu, the earliest Taoist, the TSE is changing to TZU. You may notice this on some books, but it doesn't matter. When you pronounce his name, all the stress is on the first syllable. It's Lao Tzu. So whether you say the Tzu is TSE or TZU doesn't matter. But anyway, please join me. There was something formless and perfect before the universe was born. It is serene and empty. For lack of a better name, I call it the Tao. The Tao is great. The universe is great. Earth is great. People are great. These are the four great powers. People follow the earth. Earth follows the universe follows the Tao. The Tao follows only itself. Let us be silent together to create an opportunity for prayer or meditation. The other big Taoist author besides Lao Tzu is a man who lived about 200 years later called Zhuangzi. And it's the same. All the emphasis is on the first part, and the Tzu is like a Zhuangzi. And Zhuangzi, unlike Lao Tzu, told stories. And this is a story about a cook cutting up an ox that's been slaughtered. While the prince looked on, the cook was cutting up an ox. At each touch of his hand, every heave of his shoulder, every move of his feet, every thrust of his knee, zip, zoop, he slithered the knife along with a zing, and all was in perfect rhythm, as though he were performing a dance or keeping time to music. Said the prince, "Ah, this is marvelous. Imagine skill reaching such a height." The cook laid down his knife and started giving a speech. The cook laid down his knife and replied, "What I care about is the Tao, which goes beyond skill. When I first began to cut up oxen, all I could see was the ox. After 3 years, I no longer saw the whole ox, and now I go at it by the Tao and don't look with my eyes at all. Perception and thinking have come to a stop, and the Tao moves where it wants. The Tao is a lot like the Force in Star Wars. I go along with the natural makeup, strike in the big hollows, guide the knife through the big openings, and follow things as they are. So I never touch the smallest ligament or tendon, much less a main joint. A good cook changes his knife once a year because he cuts. A mediocre cook changes his knife once a month because he hacks. I've had this knife of mine for 19 years, and I've cut up hundreds of oxen with it, and yet the blade is as good as if it had just come from the grindstone. There are spaces between the joints, and the blade of the knife has really no thickness. If you insert what has no thickness into such spaces, there's plenty of room, more than enough for the blade to play about in. That's why, after 19 years, the blade of my knife is still as good as when it first came from the grindstone. However, whenever I come to a complicated place, I size up the difficulties. I tell myself to watch out and be careful, to keep my eyes on what I'm doing, to work very slowly, and to move the knife with the greatest subtlety until flop. The whole thing falls apart like a cloud of earth crumbling to the ground. I stand there holding the knife and look all around me, completely satisfied and reluctant to move on, and then I wipe off the knife and put it away. The prince said, "Wow, from my cook, I've learned how I ought to live my life." I have 4 books that I'm going to be reading excerpts from, and it's going to get confusing for me. So there will be these pauses of a few seconds as I go from book to book and quotation to quotation. There are 2 Taoisms. There's, in China today, there are 3 big religions. There's Buddhism imported from India, and there's Confucianism, which is more of a philosophy than a religion, and there's Taoism. And Taoism tends to be the religion of the lower social classes. not the rich people, not the academics, not the government people so much as the people who work with their hands, the people like the guy on the cover. The guy on the cover, I like him. He's a farmer. He's certainly not a rich man. He's a hardworking man. He's not dressed in a very fancy way, but notice the smile. He's following the Tao, so he's content. He's content with life. He's happy. I said there were two Taoisms. There's the modern Taoism in China has a lot of superstitious elements, magic crystals and holy water and stuff like that. What we in the West are most interested in, I think, is the ancient Taoism, which was more philosophical. It was more a view of the universe. There are two sources basically for Taoism. There's Lao Tzu, who lived in the 6th century BC. So that's about the same time as Pythagoras in Greece. If you ever took geometry, Pythagoras lived in, like 550 BC, the 6th century BC. And Chuang-Tzu, who lived about 200 years later, about the time of Aristotle in Greece. Taoism arose from an older Chinese philosophy, the philosophy of yin-yang. It's kind of inappropriate to use a yin-yang symbol to symbolize Taoism. It's a little like using a Star of David to represent Christianity. That it's true that Christianity came out of Judaism, but the Star of David is really a symbol of the older religion and not of Christianity. And the yin-yang symbol it represents something older. So here's a little excerpt from Lao Tzu about the yin-yang. Something and nothing produce each other. The difficult and the easy complement each other. The long and the short offset each other. The high and the low incline towards each other. Note and sound harmonize with each other. Before and after follow each other. The yin-yang philosophy was that things come in pairs of opposites. And the Taoists said, well, these opposites tend to check and balance each other. So the net result isn't chaos, but a kind of organic order to the universe as these conflicting things balance each other. This order is really what they mean by the Tao. This order is not something brought about by a law. It's a natural organic pattern, like the grain in a piece of wood. The grain in a piece of wood. Or the Chinese like to talk about the grain in a stone. If you split a stone open, often there's a grain inside. And they said, well, if you think of the universe as a stone, inside the universe, there's a grain like that. And if you go with the grain, life is easy. And if you go cross grain, life is much harder. The Tao is something you follow. The word Tao means way in the sense of path or roadway. The Tao is something you follow, and you follow it by following the grain. So here's a little reading about that. Let's see. This is Lao Tzu. A man is supple and pliant when living, but rigid and stiff when dead. Grass and trees are pliant and fragile when living, but dried and shriveled when dead. Thus, the rigid and the strong are the comrades of death. The supple and the pliant are the comrades of life. Life goes good if you follow the Tao, if you stay flexible and pliant and supple. If you follow the current, the Tao is most often compared to the current in a river. In the world, there's nothing more submissive and weak than water. Yet, for attacking that which is rigid and strong, nothing can surpass it. We only need to think of the stones on a beach that have been rounded by the effects of water. Following the Tao is going with the flow. If you wanted to summarize following the Tao, it's go with the flow, go with the flow. The Tao, I was someone who went to a lot of schools in my life and collected degrees and so on, so I'm kind of an academic. But my background is really blue collar. You know, my mother didn't go beyond high school. My father's education ended a few weeks into the 9th grade. The kids I played with, their fathers worked in the tire factory or the rifle factory in Chicopee Falls, where I'm from. Taoism, as I was saying before, is a kind of working class religion or point of view. And the Tao is not something you find with words or concepts. According to Lao Tzu, the Tao that can be spoken of is not the real Tao. If you talk about the Tao, like I'm doing now, that's not really the Tao. Words are useless to talk about the Tao. 56. The one who speaks does not know. The one who speaks of the Tao is not at that time following the Tao. Okay? Does not know in that sense. Shuangzi. The fish trap exists because of the fish. Once you've gotten the fish, you can forget the trap. The rabbit snare exists because of the rabbit. Once you've gotten the rabbit, you can forget the snare. Words exist because of meaning. Once you've got the meaning, you can forget the words. Once you've got the meaning, you can forget the words. I like that. Oh, Shuangzi again. Let me see. Oh, using words, Shuangzi said, is like using a tube to scan the sky. If you were looking at the sky through the tube in paper towels, if you look at it, you see very distinctly a very small part of the sky, but you're missing. Using words, Shuangzi said, is like that. If you're interested in the Tao. Where am I? Oh, there's a story in Shuangzi about an academic, an intellectual, who intellectuals, philosophers talk about words a lot. Philosophy is a lot about words, the meaning of words. You know, what does morality mean? What does truth mean? This is a philosopher named Kung Sun Lung speaking. He said, I studied difference and sameness. I distinguished hardness and whiteness. I proved that not so was so, and that the unacceptable was acceptable. He's a philosopher, an intellectual talking. I confounded the wisdom of the 100 schools and demolished the arguments of a host of speakers. I believed that I had attained the highest degree of accomplishment, but now I have heard the words of Shuangzi, and I am bewildered by their strangeness. I don't know whether my arguments are not as good as his, or whether I am no match for him in understanding. I find now that I can't open my mouth. One more? Sorry. Oh, Shuangzi talking to an academic. Shuangzi is saying, heaven picked out a body for you and you use it to gibber about words. Heaven picked out a body for you and you use it to gibber about words. I've been fascinated by Taoism for years. And when I was in seminary at Harvard Divinity School, I took a course in Taoism from a Chinese professor. And he explained Taoism in a way that made a lot of sense to me. He said, following the Tao is embodied thinking. It's thinking, it's intelligent, but it's your body's intelligence, not your reason. It's not abstract, it's embodied. It's embodied intelligence, like typing. If you know how to type, which I don't, but if you know how to type, you don't have to think of it. Your body knows how to do it. Playing an instrument is that way. Wine tasting, I understand, is that way. Not that I'm a wine taster, but it's embodied thinking. Following the Tao is like that. It's like that. Following the Tao, they say, brings contentment. Lao Tzu, there's no crime greater than having too many desires. There's no disaster greater than not being content. There's no misfortune greater than being covetous, wanting things. In being content, you'll always have enough. In being content, you'll always have enough. If you're interested in Lao Tzu at all, I've been reading one of the classic translations. It's Penguin. This is the one that it was this one, sorry. It wasn't the one that Kit was reading from. Kit was reading from this one. There's a poet named Stephen Mitchell who translates a lot of world classics. And some sticklers say that his translations are going too far, that he's going too far from the original. But I admire his poetic instincts. He's not an expert in Chinese or anything, but what he does is read lots and lots and lots of different English translations, and then with his poet sense comes to what he thinks overall they're saying, and then he renders it poetically. This is about Taoism bringing contentment. When people dearly love their homes, they aren't interested in travel. People who follow the Tao enjoy their food, they take pleasure in being with their families, they spend weekends working in their gardens, they delight in the doings of the neighborhood. And even though the next country is so close that people can hear its roosters crowing and its dogs barking, they are content to die of old age without ever having gone to see it. It's not that they're against travel, but it's better to just stay home because they're so content at home. Shuangzi. This is a kind of exaggeration, but I like it anyway. There was a holy man, a follower of the Tao, living on a faraway mountain with skin like snow and gentle and shy like a young girl. He doesn't eat, but sucks the wind and drinks the dew and wanders about. He concentrates his spirit and he can protect himself from sickness. He doesn't even eat. It's because he's so following the Tao so perfectly, he doesn't need to. One more from Shuangzi. Oh, yeah. Yu, fell ill. His friend Su, SSU, went to ask how he was. Yu said, "Amazing. The Creator is making me all crookedy like this. My back sticks up like a hunchback, and my vital organs are on top of me." I guess the guy's all hunched over, right? My chin is hidden in my navel. My shoulders are up above my head, and my pigtail points to the sky. Yet he seemed calm and unconcerned. Dragging himself haltingly to a well, he looked at his reflection and said, "Wow, so the Creator is making me all crookedy like this." His friend Sue said, "Do you resent it?" "Why, no. What would I resent? If the process continues, perhaps in time he'll transform my left arm into a rooster. In that case, I'll keep watch on the night. Or perhaps in time he'll transform my right arm into a crossbow pellet, and I'll shoot down an owl for roasting. Or perhaps in time he'll transform my buttocks into cartwheels. Then with my spirit for a horse, I'll climb up and go for a ride. What need will I have for a carriage again? I received life because the time had come. I will lose it because the order of things passes on. Be content with this time and dwell in this order, and then neither sorrow nor joy can touch you. There are those who cannot free themselves. They are bound to all things, but that's not the way to go. What do I have to resent? What do I have to resent? And I think of the guy on the cover. I think of the guy on the cover, and I love that little smile. As a minister, someone who's theoretically concerned with morality and so on, my own and others, though I try to keep out of others' business. One thing that I find fascinating about the Tao, besides the things I've mentioned, is that following the Tao is considered to be superior to being moral. It's even better than being moral. When the great Tao is forgotten, said Lao Tzu, goodness and piety appear. When the Tao is forgotten, goodness appears. When the body's intelligence, here's embodied thinking again, when the body's intelligence declines, cleverness steps forth. When there's no peace in the family, filial piety begins. When the country falls into chaos, patriotism is born. Throw away holiness and wisdom, and people will be 100 times happier. Throw away morality and justice, and people will do the right thing. Throw away competitiveness and profit, and there won't be any thieves. I like the idea that if people truly follow the Tao, there'll be a natural give and take that'll make morality and justice and laws unnecessary. Of course, this is not too practical, but I like the vision. I like the vision. 38. 38. When the Tao was lost, there was virtue. When virtue was lost, there was benevolence. When benevolence was lost, there was rectitude. And when rectitude was lost, there were religious rites. If you want to connect Taoism to Christianity, there's a book by Thomas Merton, the famous Trappist monk, Catholic thinker, about Shuangzi, called The Way of Shuangzi. And here's just a little piece of that. If a man is crossing a river, this is Shuangzi, but as rendered by Thomas Merton. If a man is crossing a river and an empty boat collides with his own boat, even though he be a bad-tempered man, he won't become angry because the other boat is empty. But if he sees a man in the other boat, he'll shout at him to steer clear. And if the shout is not heard, he will shout again and yet again and begin cursing. And all because there's somebody in the other boat. If you can empty your own boat crossing the river of the world, no one will oppose you. No one will seek to harm you. Who can free himself from achievement and fame? Who can descend and be lost among the masses of people? He will follow the Tao, unseen. He will go about like life itself with no name and no home. Simple is he without distinction. To all appearances, he's a fool. His steps leave no trace. He has no power. He achieves nothing. He has no reputation. Since he judges no one judges him. Such is the perfect man. His boat is empty. Taoism is telling us, I think more than anything else, relax, relax, relax. Go with the flow. This is the path to contentment. This is the path to morality. If you follow the Tao, you're at one with the universe, and at the same time, you're operating on the highest moral level. And now, for the support of this congregation and its work, the morning offering will be gratefully received, and I hope for you as well. Time for sharing joys and concerns. The theory is a joy shared is multiplied, and a concern or sorrow shared is divided. Donald will bring you a mic.
Nancy and I had lunch with a wedding celebration last night. An old friend of ours, maybe old 70 or so, and they Chinese, maybe in our fifties or so. They don't speak each other's language. They talk in translators and on their phones. And several people thought that was a pretty good way to get it.
I've just got several list of friends, acquaintances, whatever, that have stuff going on this week. So just if you could send out a good thought for, let's see here. Pat and Bob, Tom, and these are all people who just have stuff going on.
I have a kind of strange way of putting it. I just had a birthday, 60 years old. God bless me, I'm here, I'm 60. The thing that got me was, out of all the people and things that I've done and the people I've met, there's only one person that showed up on my birthday. And that was my friend Sean, who is Kathy's son, and Dave's stepson. He spent the day with me. We did nothing. We went to the park and sat there and did nothing. We listened to music, we talked. But I thought about it because my birthday was like, wow, I'm 60. What do I have to look forward to? I have 3 surgeries that are going to have to be done. Can't be done because I don't have insurance. I don't have the right insurance. So I can't have any of my surgeries. So I'm screwed no matter what. So I have to live with the torn rotator cuff, the hernia, and then eventually the heart, which the defibrillator will be removed whenever they feel like it. But I'm getting objections from all the doctors. So I'm stuck in the dilemma. Where do I go from here? What do I do from here? I have a large voice that's going to be spoken on Spotify. I have a thing that's going to be going on about homelessness and about the problems I'm dealing with, but I deal with a lot of other people who are going through the same thing. So on Spotify, on YouTube, TikTok, I'm going to spread the word out there about the reality of homelessness and what's going on with our medical. Mass health is screwing everyone over. I'm 60 years old and I can't get the right insurance and I can't do the right thing because of fallbacks. All the stuff our city says, our state, our government, look what happened. I was getting ready to have surgery. Oh, God, can't do it. Not because of my situation, but because mass health, insurance, little things. Not having somebody to pick me up at the hospital and bring me home and take care of me for 24 hours was a major issue with them. Because after surgery, I had to be with somebody. But because I don't have anybody, they use that against me. And I'm very upset about that. So I'm going to have a big thing going on. And it's going to end up over here at City Hall. I'm going to have a microphone, I'm going to have a speaker, and I'm going to let them hear my voice. Because I'm getting really sick of it. Seeing how people who are homeless, who are dealing with situations, but now medical, get rejected because of living in a homeless shelter, living on the street, not having insurance, whatever it is, they use that against you. So they would rather see me in pain every day with the shoulder, the hernia, and the heart situation than take care of my problem. They don't want to do it. They say they can't. So I get screwed again. So I'm sorry I'm letting my venting go, but I have to let this word go out because people have to hear it and know that there are people suffering out there today because of what they say is so good. Insurance, medical, dental, whatever. I'm going blind, I can't get glasses. What the hell's going on here? I don't know. Don't have insurance, don't have the right care. Oh well, I guess I'm done.
Thank you. This is exactly the right place for us to talk about our concerns. It's cheap praise or cheap feelings with them. I'm sure for most of us, our hearts are with you, and the system can be overwhelming. But one day at a time. And Richard, I wanted to thank you so much for this reading you did today. I've been a fan of Eastern thought for 60 years, and this image is particularly about water throughout the Tao. That water can tear down mountains, and it's gentle and it's smooth and it's a feminine concept, but it will eventually seek its own level. Things will eventually turn out as they should. Thank you.
Can we join in our closing hymn, number 352, Find a Stillness? Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry. Find the silence, hold the silence, let the silence carry. In the spirit, by the spirit, with the spirit giving power, I will find true see the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let the flower, help the flower, watch the flower carry me. In the spirit, by the spirit, with the spirit giving power, I will go May ours be a religion that, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Amen.
Thank